Hey man, you done went and found yourself downloading Logic, huh? And now you think you an engineer, but you forgot one thing. You don't even know how to record yet. But it's cool, man. It's cool. It's cool. Cause I got the 5 things that you need to set up to get started recording in Logic. What up, YouTube? This your boy Wavy Wayne, Wavy.wav. And that's right. I'm stepping over to the wild side today, and I'm getting up close and personal with Logic. Y'all don't know, but Logic was my first DAW after my first DAW. So Pro Tools was my first DAW. Then I had a little thing with Logic. Then I went back to Pro Tools. But we're gonna have a little bit of fun with Logic today. And anybody that's interested in recording and learning more about Logic, make sure that y'all go ahead and subscribe to this channel right now, because there will be new Logic videos coming all the time. And more importantly, every week I drop videos about recording and mixing. No matter what DAW you in, you'll find it helpful. And y'all keep on asking me if I got templates for Logic, and I finally do. So check out wavywayne.com to download yours right now. And if you watch this video all the way to the end, I might have a little special prize for you at the end of the video, man. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's do it. So this video is for pure beginners and some people who've been recording for a while and just kind of going through the process without really understanding the steps. I'm going to break down these 5 key concepts with you that'll really just help make your session flow and your understanding of how to get a good recording that much better. The 5 things that we're going to discuss today are going to be making sure you got your inputs and outputs correct, setting the right bit depth, setting the right sample rate, importing your beat to start recording, and then going ahead and making a track to record your vocals and getting that armed for record. I can't say recording today. So if you want to record in Logic, the first thing you need to do is quit Pro Tools. No, you actually don't got to quit Pro Tools. You can have Pro Tools and Logic running at the same time. It's crazy, man. Trust me, I did it. You know what I'm saying? There's like a little, I don't want to get off into a tangent. I'm going to go ahead and launch Logic though. Where is Logic? Let's go over to my Finder and go to Applications, Logic Pro X. We're going to double click on that icon. If you want, you can drag it over to your dock. It's not completely necessary though. You don't really got to. Now, usually when Logic opens, let me just close this little Finder window. Usually when Logic opens, especially after you opened it for the first time, Logic will try to open up with whatever the last session is that you were working on. I really hate that. I don't want Logic to open up with anything. So there is a preference that you can change to have Logic just ask you what you want to do every time that you launch the program. So that's what you see right now. And I'll show y'all how to do that once we dive into the menus just a little bit. All right. I want y'all to be able to get started recording right after this video. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create a new empty. When Logic opens, the choose a track type dialog box will appear. Let's explore the options that we have. If you want to just jump off making a beat so you can create a software instrument track, you would click there. If you about to record some audio, any live vocals, maybe you about to do your podcast or you're going to record a rap song, then you want to click under this audio section and you want to choose the microphone. If you plan direct in with an instrument like a guitar or bass or something, then you would choose this little button. Man, they make everything so easy. If you're a drummer, add a drummer that automatically plays along with your song. I'm good on that. So we're going to go right to the microphone setting because we want to drop some vocals today. All right. So we're going to click on that microphone. Now down below, we got details. And if your details box isn't showing, then you can just click on this little disclosure triangle to show and hide that. But you definitely want to see these details because this is important to make sure that your stuff is set up right so you can get a good quality audio recording. Jeez. All right, so we got to look at the details, all right? Being an audio engineer is all about the details, baby. So under audio input, for this new track that they're forcing me to create, I'm just going to choose no input. All right. And for audio output, we're going to choose the default output. If it's not looking right for you, then what we can do is, if you see down at the bottom, it says my instrument is connected with the Universal Audio Thunderbolt. My microphone is connected with my Universal Audio via Thunderbolt. All right. If that's not the case for you, double check and make sure that your interface is connected appropriately. Make sure that it's powered on. Yeah, and that if you are working on a PC, I doubt it. Yeah, so make sure that it's connected and powered on. Right. And then what you may need to do to change it, or maybe you have multiple interfaces. And the same thing if you have a problem on your output too. I hear sound from my Universal Audio Thunderbolt. Not that you currently hear sound right now, but you want to hear sound from it, right? Like that's where you want the sound to come from. So if you don't hear anything at the moment, don't worry about that at all. All right. So, but we can change this. If we just click on this little triangle, this will bring up our preferences window. And then we in the audio tab of the preferences dialog box. So basically, let's just take a look here. If you needed to change your device for any reason, again, maybe when Logic initially launched, it didn't read your Focusrite or whatever, you can click on your output device. That means where do you want to hear sound from? And then you click on your input device. What is your instrument or microphone connected to? So that's what you want to have set up there. Another important setting here is the IO buffer size. Very important, all right? Now, I like to keep my IO buffer size right at 128 samples when I'm recording. The reason that I do that is because let's take a look at what IO buffer size is. The IO buffer size, as they call it in Logic, they call it hardware buffer size in Pro Tools. But all this is the amount of information that your computer is going to process at one time. When you are recording, that analog signal, your voice produces a electromagnetic pulse that travels down your XLR, and it hits your interface, and that analog signal is then converted over into digital, which then goes into your computer and is processed by Logic and all of that, whatever you're doing in there, all your auto tune and stuff, and then it spits it back out to your headphones or to your studio monitors. All of that processing takes time from the time that the sound hits your mic capsule to the time that you actually hear it back. That time in between is called latency. While you are recording, you want to reduce the latency as much as possible, because it becomes really annoying when you have latency, issues, like you hearing yourself back and it's delayed, right? There's a time gap, especially if you're trying to sing a song or something rhythmic where the timing is very important. Latency issues are a problem. So the rule to follow with latency is to make sure that your latency is set high for mixing and low for recording. Again, high for mixing, low for recording. Higher IO buffer size while mixing will allow you to have more tracks and use more processing and more CPU intensive stuff going on. Lower hardware buffer size, or IO buffer size, like they call it in Logic, is going to make sure that the latency is low enough. So I like to stick right around 128 to make sure that I can still use some plugins as I am recording, but my artist or whoever is, you know what I'm saying, hearing themselves back, they're not going to incur any latency. So at least any noticeable amount of latency, but it's pretty much impossible to get zero latency. All right. So that's that. So that's our input section that we need to worry about for now. If we stay in the same preferences tab and go to the recording section, we can also talk about setting our file type. The file type that you need, that I like to rock with, is Wave, of course, because I'm Wavy Wayne. You already know, Wavy.com, baby. All right. That was stupid, y'all. I'm sorry. So yeah, so go with Wave. That's the standard. Stick there. Now bit depth. Let's talk a little bit about bit depth. basically bit depth determines the amplitude resolution, right? The higher the bit depth, the more dynamic your records can be. I'm not going to get real deep off into that tangent because I can, but just think about it like that. The higher the bit depth, the more dynamic, meaning your records can be ultimately louder and quieter all at the same time. So I say all that just to say, keep the 24-bit recording checked, all right, because we want to record the most dynamic records as possible. Before we leave this preferences window, let's check the project settings, okay? So right down here, you say recording project settings, and this is where we get to set our sample rate. So I'm gonna go over to audio actually, and that's the main thing that I'm worried about is the sample rate, all right? The sample rate that you choose will ultimately determine the quality of your audio. Think about sample rate as like frame rate with film, right? Or a little flip book. If I make an image of me walking across the studio and I only draw 3 pictures of it to get from one side to the other, it's going to look pretty choppy. But if I take that in that same motion and I draw 100 pictures, it will create a much fluid, more accurate representation of what happened, right? So sample rate is basically the digital snapshots of your audio as they're coming into your audio interface. That's the interface job, is to basically capture that audio. So the sample rate determines how many times per second will the audio be measured. In this case, we're at a sample rate of 48 kilohertz. So that means 48,000 times per second the audio will be measured. CD quality sample rate is 44.1 kilohertz. And that also goes for most MP3s that you guys listen to as well. I like to record a little bit higher than that, so I always keep my sample rate at 48 kilohertz, all right? So I go with 48 kilohertz all the time. As you see, there are some other choices all the way up to 192 kilohertz, but again, if we're gonna go all the way back down to 44.1, there's really no need to eat up all of this hard drive space by recording at 192 kilohertz or some insane sample rate, okay? So just keep it at 48K. Now that we got the sample rate set, we can go ahead and close this project settings pane and we can close the preferences. Boom, everything is good. And we can hit create. Before we start recording, we're gonna need some hot beats, man. So let's go ahead and import an audio file into this session. To import audio files, I'm just gonna go up to File, choose Import Audio File. Wow. The shortcut is Shift Command I, just like Pro Tools. You know what? Let's run this back real quick. I just did a rewind. Check this out. If you go to the Logic Pro menu, you can go down to key commands and you can have your key commands actually match Pro Tools key commands. If you know Pro Tools shortcuts, you can just use them in Logic. So that's what I'm using. I'm using all Pro Tools shortcuts. Simple and plain. Use that. If you're following this channel, which you should be, if you subscribe, then when I talk about shortcuts, I'm primarily going to talk about the Pro Tools shortcuts. So I'm going to go ahead and use my shortcut, Shift Command I, to import this audio file, or you can just go up to the File menu and choose Import Audio File. All right, so I'm just going to find one of these beats provided from my homie Noisy Neighborz, man. They the dopest producers out there. All right, so thank y'all for always keeping the channel laced with some hot beats. But I'm just gonna choose one of these beats from here. If you want to audition it, you can just hit play and stop down here to make sure that's a beat that you want. And I'm gonna go ahead and open that up. Now, because I had that audio track, I created that audio track and it was selected, the beat automatically went onto that track. Here's an extra bonus tip. We always want to have a tempo of the beats that we working with locked into our session. So Logic has a cool feature that allows us to do this really easy without any work. So all you have to do is go ahead and go to the audio effects button here on the left. So if you don't see this little side panel, all you have to do is click the little eye up here that shows you more information about the track you have selected. And since we only had that one track, it'll pop up no problem. Also, you can just show your mixer window by clicking on the little fader icon, show your little mixer strip, and you can do the same thing from here. I'm actually going to work like this from here on out so we can see both. So you probably should do that too. Just go ahead and show that mixer so you can see your little edit window and your mixer at the same time. So from the mixer, I'm just going to go to the audio effects button, click, and I'm going to go to metering and then BPM counter and choose the stereo version that's available there. I'm just going to play some of this beat. I'm going to go over to where the drums are just because it's a little easier. Cool. So it's giving me 75 beats per minute. I think that's pretty accurate. So we're just going to go right up to the BPM counter right here in our main transport, little main counter window. And I'm going to type in 75 beats per minute and we're going to close that out. Before we get started, let's take a look at this beat track. As you can see, when we look at the track, we see a couple of different numbers here. So I have the level that my fader is set at, the volume. So if I change that, we see that that little indicator changes. That right now I got my fader at -2.5. And to the right, that's my peak indicator, right? My peak level meter. So this beat is peaking out at 0.3 dB. That means it's pretty loud. It means there's less than a tenth of a dB of headroom left to actually kind of make any room for these vocals to fit in and anything else I want to add in this mix. So one important thing that we need to do, especially to avoid clipping and distortion, is turn the beat down first before we start recording. So I want this, when I record my vocals, I want my input level to kind of peak about -6. Excuse me. When I'm recording my vocals, I want my input level to kind of peak about -6 dB. I have a whole video on setting the right input level, so y'all can check that out. But I want it to peak about -6, so I need the beat to actually be a little lower than that. So I want that beat to peak at about probably -8 dB or -7 dB. So I'm gonna turn it down a few dB until I can achieve that. And I'm just gonna play it during one of its loudest sections. All right, cool. So I think that's going to be a good level to start off with that beat. And the next thing that I'm actually going to do is go ahead and make a new mono audio track so that I can record some vocals too. So to do this, we can hit Shift Command N. That's the new track command. Or you can use the granny method and go to File or Track, New. All right, either way, Shift Command N is going to be the shortcut. Use that. Be an editing ninja. All my editing ninjas, check in, man. If you use shortcuts, leave a comment. All right, so for this audio track, let's see. We can go ahead and set the input type here. Since my microphone is actually plugged into input 2 on my interface, then I'm going to make sure that I set the input to input 2. I don't need to do any of that, none of that stuff. The output, all that stays the same. Hit create. And boom, we can automatically see signal coming in on my channel. Now, if you don't see signal right away, especially if you're talking in the microphone or there is some sound, then there's a couple things you need to check. Maybe check your XLR cable, make sure your microphone is connected appropriately, or make sure that if you are using a microphone that requires phantom power, a condenser microphone, be sure to hit that 48 volts button on your audio interface to send it phantom power. I digress. So we got signal. All right. And as we see, my signal right now is peaking at about -8, which is pretty good. I don't need it to be too much louder because once I start rapping, you know, I get a little more excited, cool. So I feel like we got a good, strong signal coming into the actual track. So the next thing that we're going to do is input arm it. Once the track is input arm, you'll be able to actually hear yourself. So now when you arm the input is live, so you actually can hear whatever's coming through that track. So we want to turn that on so we can hear it. And before we move forward, let's go ahead and keep ourselves in good organizational habits. So let's name these tracks. To rename a track in Logic, just simply double click on the nameplate. So I'm gonna name this first track Beat. And you can hit tab to go over to the next track. So just double click or just double click again. But I like to be fast. Editing ninja, you feel me? So and this next track is going to be called vocals. Cool. I got my track input armed. I'm going to go ahead now. So now I'm going to go ahead and record on the track. That's just going to hit the little red record button. And now the track is ready for recording. There's a couple of different ways that we can start recording here. One way is the granny method. You can just go up and hit the little record button in the transport, or you can hold command and hit the space bar, and then your session will also start recording. So let's go ahead and take this from the top. Yo, turn my headphones up. Yeah. I bet. So now we about to drop some hot bars. Make sure y'all ready for all this. Oh, and another thing. So since I'm not using I'm not making a beat and I got a beat in here, I don't need the count off. So we can turn that off. That's really annoying. It's right up here in the transport where it says 1, 2, 3, 4. Just click that. And now we ready to record. And the shortcut that I'm going to use again is command spacebar. Yeah, it's Wavy. Huh, I'm going crazy. Yeah, these boys lazy.
Can you turn that down, please?
They ain't never heard me spit no bars this hard. They ain't never met me this hard in a cart. They ain't know that I got a crazy flow. They ain't know that I'm coming back. Yo, here I go for real, making songs in Logic. Ay, you know that I've been in the gym getting brolic. Ay, what you talking about? I'm not an engineer, I'm an engineer.
Can you turn that down, please?
All right, good. So I'm gonna put my rap career on hold for now, and we're gonna go ahead and get back to this. So once you've made your first recording, you can actually go ahead and take the track off record on, because you don't want to risk recording over it. And you can even go ahead and turn the input off because we're done recording on that track. And then you can just go ahead and run your session back to the beginning by hitting return, and then hit the space bar again to play. I'm going to save y'all from having to hear that again. Thanks for watching this video. If you found it helpful, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and go ahead and leave a comment and thumbs up as well. I know I'm asking y'all to do a lot, but I had to do this video. You ain't saying nothing about all that. All right then. Make sure y'all visit Wavy.com. I just dropped some new Logic templates, and if you're a Pro Tools user, I got a bunch of Pro Tools templates over there too. All right, and I did say that if you wait to the end of the video, I give y'all something special. All right, so if you go to Wavy.com and you cop one of those Logic templates, you can get 50% off for 1 week only. I'm gonna give them 50% off, and you gotta use the code Wavy Logic. All right, so Wavy Logic, 50% off for 1 week only. After 1 week after this video drops. So go to wavywayne.com and download your Logic templates today. Thanks for watching this video. Be dope, man.